So to kick things off, could I read the ground rules again?
If you feel it's necessary.
Well, I do think there
Are we
are
on
some
record?
pertinent ones for today, so I won't read the first two regarding, the dates. We've already established those and what the 150-day window is, but as a reminder that parties agree whenever possible, statements to the school board will be a joint presentation for the purpose to publicly state their positions on open articles. One that's important for today is any article unopened by either party on May 31st, 2023 bargaining session will remain unopened unless mutually agreed otherwise. If either party opens an article, the entire article is open for bargaining and remains so until a tentative agreement is reached. The first two bargaining sessions will be 2 hours in length. Subsequent bargaining sessions will be a minimum of 4 hours in length unless mutually agreed upon to be shorter in duration. 4-hour sessions will start no later than 2 p.m. unless mutually agreed upon. Each team will indicate the estimated length of caucuses. If a caucus is taking more time than expected, a team representative will communicate that information to the other team during the caucus. Portions of an article where agreement has been reached will be identified in parentheses with an OK, with an understanding that full agreement is not binding until a tentative agreement is reached on the entire article. Tentative agreements on individual articles as they are reached will be dated or initialed or signed by the spokesperson for each team with a copy for each team. By the end of each meeting, an agenda for the next meeting will be set and action items will be assigned. Both parties are encouraged to share their priorities regarding issues or articles they would like to see resolved or to seek clarification from each party, from the other party. We might want to discuss that one at the end today, just make sure we're both on the same page on that one. And all bargaining sessions will be open to the public unless mutually agreed upon otherwise. All bargaining sessions will have a virtual option with the link embedded on the district's main page with a schedule of dates and times of upcoming bargaining sessions so bargaining can be viewed in real time. Thank you, Daniel, for being here and setting up today. And any time spent with the bargaining with the district when an employee is not on paid time shall be split 50-50 with the employee. I won't go through the examples. There are options available that we know about, and I think that's good. So our agenda, anything to add to the agenda that we sent or any discussion on the agenda?
I think I emailed you some stuff.
Yeah, I got that.
And actually, we have a couple more articles behind what he sent you.
Okay.
Like 28, we had highlighted, but it wasn't, I didn't have it cracked at that point, so.
So we have 4 articles to give to you as tentative agreements for you to review during caucus. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time. Do we? Are those over there, Marissa?
Yes, they'll be on the top.
Oh, in the packet here?
So for the sake of consistency, we, instead of having like a grammar article or a non-grammar, we just kind of put it's all on one article. So for instance, the Article 6, management rights and responsibilities, we okayed the one apostrophe that was on the grammar change there. So you can see that one.
My secretary will be so happy.
Yes. Article 12 is a combination of your grammar articles, but also an acceptance of your, for instance, crossing out accept drivers on number 2. So
Okay.
I feel like that one's ready to go. Number 24, the funding, I think that was one of your just a grammar only, and we accepted that. And same thing with contracting out was just was on your grammar document, and we accepted that. So at a caucus or before we adjourn today, we can do signatures. Be great.
Sounds good.
So then you're bringing, so what we talked about, and looks like an email just arrived, so I'll forward that to the team. So you've got Articles 3, 19, 21, 28, 29, 30, also Article 4.
That sounds right. Should be 7, 20.
Yep. ready when you are.
Am I presenting first?
Yeah.
Oh, I only say that because agenda, I thought it said something different.
I thought we said.
No, we did.
Okay.
I don't think you changed the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I'll make it through.
Thank you so much.
Almost
Be
didn't see
careful.
that. Almost didn't see that.
Good job.
Thank
It's
you.
all right. Today it wasn't a movie.
Thank you.
And for some reason, I don't have 28 here, so let me grab that. We'll go this way. 28 didn't print in the packet for some reason, so. Is that it there? Yeah. All right.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Okay. So, starting with the first page here, under Article 3 salaries, the committee's come up with, for this one-year deal, the committee's come up with a $5 an hour increase to each cell. Obviously, they want to stay competitive. They really are concerned about keeping people here. A lot of districts around us are starting to really, nibble away at some of our groups. So down below here, we struck out a lot of stuff because it doesn't really apply anymore. Down below here, you'll see under number 2, we're proposing to make the steps ongoing. Under number 2A, we're just saying they need to be hired before July 1st. We want to increase the percentage between steps, much like Dallas did, to 7%, although I think Dallas was actually slightly over 6 on theirs. On the next page, so you're going to see a lot of this in here where the 4-hour employees stuff has been scratched, and that's because that law is still pending over the 5-hour minimum day for, at least the last I heard, is still pending at the legislature to make everything 5 hours minimum at the schools. So you're going to see a lot of that reflected in here, and I guess we'll see what happens to that law and what we decide we want to do with that later on. If you go down to 8, you'll see that we increased the shift differential, and we think that should be bolded. So where the second sentence is before 6 a.m. outside their work shift, that should be bolded. So because that is a change. So make it a little clearer what we're talking about there. Down below under 9, it seemed a bit redundant to have the dates up above and down below as well. And we had some that were annual and some that were not annual, so we just cleaned that up to make them all clear that they're all annual in this proposal. We increased the amounts with hopes that when we get to the end of the scale, they'll still have a little bit of extra money since they won't be getting steps anymore potentially unless we agree to the previous page to do some of this annual bonuses. Down under PLO, I won't read the whole thing, but the gist of it is that we'd like to see it paid for by the district. Probably not a surprise that we're asking for that 0.6 to be covered. Down under number 12, one-time stipend. Now this is something different that a few districts are doing in some fashion or another. It's kind of an interesting idea because teachers, a lot of their stuff is based on, if you have this degree or that degree or whatnot. And there's no real dollars to donuts way of doing that for classified because it's just they're different types of jobs. But they came up with this as like a one-time stipend as recognition if they continue their education or they have this education coming in to show them some value for what they bring to the district or what they've gotten while they're here at the district. And it goes from licensing to also like, AAs, PhDs, and so on. So it kind of has a good wide variety in there. It's a one-time stipend they get one time in their career with the district. Article 4, again, you'll see here that we reflected 5 hours as the minimum on here, and a lot of those changes have to do with that. I'd say the one that doesn't is under A. They're wanting to increase the insurance benefit to $1,800. Down under 2C part-time, you'll see that we've switched that to 60 calendar days instead of 90 days. On the next page, we have 10 days instead of 2, and maybe that's not the right number, but it felt like 2. And I guess we'll talk about this some more. It felt like it's kind of a rush decision versus having a couple weeks to figure it out. And then down below, under 8, 6 is again the 20 hours versus 25 hours issue. So under 8, down below you'll see further down that we're trying to establish an insurance pool here. I think that could turn out to be a win-win for the district and for the members, but it has to be funded. So under 8, you're seeing here that if $1,800 is the amount that I would get for my insurance, and I use $1,400, the other $400 would roll into that pool to help fund it. And under 11 is said pool with some provisions along the way, A through E, talking about how things would work or potentially would work. And then the idea behind the pool is that, and this is probably for, forget, it might be Kim. I don't know who the person does all the financial stuff here for you guys are. You or Steve probably, or somebody to run there. If you reach out to, I forget Olivia's last name all of a sudden, down in Corvallis, she's given me permission to give her name out. They have a pool down there. They have a much lower payment for the district. I think they're like $1,165 or $1,200, something like that. But part of that is because they have this pool where they're absorbing some of those costs with that money. So it's kind of worked out to be a really good thing down there. And so, but I figured I could tell you that, but if you could talk to somebody who's on your side of the table that does this stuff, you'd probably get the exact question you wanted to answer better. So I'll reach out to Olivia out there, and I can forward her contact information and her last name.
Olivia Myers questions.
You know her. Yep, perfect. She said she's pretty well known. So, yeah, she'd be a good person to reach out to get some questions answered about this from your side of the table. And she's expecting the calls too. So under 11, obviously we're looking to pick up with PLO. I mean, short-term disability is kind of not a thing anymore necessarily. So we're looking to see if we can get picked up the long-term disability. And this is another one that came out of another district. And I don't know, I thought I'd put it out here to see if, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, to see if it would be something that would be of interest to the district. 13 basically would allow somebody who retires from you, it's not quite Medicare age, to be able to purchase insurance through you. So they would have to buy the insurance through you. We have a district that does this, and they do it because they said having more people in the pool gets them a little better deal or something like that. I didn't know if that was a thing out here, but it seemed very interesting. But I'll just tell you, it's just one of those kind of off-the-wall proposals. So, we're not going to be super offended if you don't like it, but it's something that I thought would be interesting, and maybe give people incentives to stay here through retirement. Who knows, maybe not, I don't know. So switching gears over here to Article 19, sick leave. So we've struck out the language under B. I don't believe that's within the scope of the law either. I think that your process is to go through small claims court to reclaim that money. So I don't think that that's legal, is how I'm going to go with that one, okay? Under D, you got Tier 1 and 2 this applies to under the ORS. OPSRP no longer accepts, or I don't know if they've ever accepted, but they definitely don't accept now, people to use that benefit. So you'll see that reflected, that change reflected lower on here, but I just want to make this clear who we're talking about, so somebody who's an OPSRP doesn't think that they're going to be able to roll half their sick leave to get benefits from the PERS trust. Let's see here. I think the next substantive change is under number 4 on the next page. It's I guess it's J. Wow, we don't have a 1 there. Well, it's on number 4 over at the next page. Now this is talking about employees of 160 hours, which is basically a cumulative of what, if you're full-time, that'd be 1 month. If you're less than full-time, that would be maybe a month and a half or whatever. The 160-hour idea on the sick leave is that with PLO coming in, that's 3 months right there that they can be off, right? Because they're paying that program or it's being paid into or whatever. And then they have at least another month of sick leave. That's 4 months right there. And then if they have any of their, if they're eligible for a sick bank, which you'll see later on in here, that would be another potential month there. And then if they have any personal days or vacation or both, I mean, we're talking, that stretches things out to like close to 6 months for a lot of folks. So with the fact that OPSRP can't roll their stuff into the PERS like Tier 1 and Tier 2 can, we've made the proposal below that they could, once they hit that threshold by their choice, they can choose to roll some of that into a retirement 403B with the goal of hopefully taking care of a couple different problems here. I'm sure this district, like many others, have seen people start, use up all their sick leave every year, and then they're out, right? So you keep going through those sick leaves, those 2 weeks every year. At least, unless this district's different than the other ones I deal with, that's a problem. This would make them have to, if they were full-time, they have to make it 2 years without any sick leave. You know, most people use their sick leave, but I don't know. I guess I personally would question whether people every year have 2 weeks of sick leave they have to use, you know? Being a person who uses my sick leave occasionally, but definitely not in that same realm. So there could be some savings on the front end for you there. And then we'd like to recoup some of that savings on the back end for our folks once they reach that threshold. And we can talk about the threshold number, but or something else that maybe helps those folks that are off-serve that don't have the same benefit to roll over like the tier 1 and 2 folks do. That's the intent of that language. And it's really, like most things you see here, it's just an opener to have this discussion to see if we can figure out something that makes sense for everybody. But that's the thinking behind it. The sick leave bank, we had great discussions the last time, Scott, you missed out, but you're here this time. And this is just a process for how it could work. And essentially, the idea here is very simple. I don't think I need to go into deep details. Just would allow people to have access, if they choose to be a member, access to a sick bank if they were to need it, beyond all their other leaves being paid first. And PLO. All right, Article 21 training. So we looked at some of the stuff, and some of the stuff wasn't being utilized to its full potential. But we thought rather than measure, like if you look at the old proposal, it started I think at 12.5 and went up to about 15 by the end of the period. We figured it better, easier to set kind of a standard number. I'm seeing in a lot of areas of just 25K, and then go ahead and expand it a little for licensing and testing. So like your person running the video equipment here, if he had to go get a specific test, you know, to get a degree, he'd have to study all for it on his own time. But if he went and did the test, you'd cover that test fee. Or if there's license advance needs to better, you know, further things along, he could get that, and this would be covered under this process here. The members felt really strongly that since we're in education, that it shouldn't, the qualifier shouldn't only be that it pertains to your specific job. Because if I'm a food service worker, but I have dreams of being a secretary person, I would need office, but you'd never need that for food service, right? So it doesn't allow me to move within the district with that kind of a restriction. So they felt, and we had this language here, that it should not be only based on, you know, if it's for your job. It'd be if you want to get educated, if you want to move forward, you know, whatever it may be. And then we increased the amounts below. And then if you turn over to, we have a new article, 29, safety. I won't run through it all because y'all can read, but I would say that we have broken down into segments that make sense to us, like student behavior. I think we've all seen since COVID what one of my presidents referred to as kids coming back in like feral cats, you know, just having a lot of issues because of being locked up for those years with COVID. We'd like to have some way to follow through what happens when those things happen, when those disruptive behaviors happen, and letting us know that it's been dealt with rather than somebody just telling somebody and we never find out what happens. We've broken down the other category, employee safety. It's pretty straightforward. We want people to be in a safe work environment. And then on the back page here, hazardous equipment, again, pretty straightforward. You don't want to use things that are broken or unsafe. And then the last section is safety training, just that we're expected to have them and we're expected to do them, you know, essentially, that's what it says. If you turn to the last page, it is miscellaneous. Very well named because we got kind of eclectic things under here. So the first one is use of video equipment and audio equipment. Now, Dan's been real good about letting us know, even when you had the drone issue, remember, a while back, of letting us know, bargaining with us each time it happens. This seems like a way to kind of short circuit some of that. So we had some basic ground rules and how this stuff works. Then you don't have to bargain with us. Not that I don't enjoy the time, Dan. It's just that I thought it might be easier if we had a process to dealing with that. And that's what A through C is. Now E is just something we've done the last, this will be the third time now we're doing right now, having a visual and audio recording of things so members can see what's going on. I didn't make it as precise as have to stream, have to record. I mean, I tried to make it pretty general, just that we will do something along those lines. And then put it in the contract so we don't have to keep putting in the ground rules. It'll just be a given. And then the last one, under number 2, is just meant to be, hey, look, we just want to make sure we're invited to the same meetings the teachers are invited to, or other groups are invited to, so that we know what's going on. That's essentially that. If it needs to be written in a better way, we're open to that, but that's the intent of it. With that, you have your proposal. How did I do? Okay, half hour. All right. Oh, I take it back, Dan. There's one more on the back here. That loose page gave you. So under this one here, obviously this is a 1-year agreement at this point that we're looking at from our point of view. Down to number 3, those 27 and 24, actually we've put that process into those articles. So it didn't make sense. I thought about striking the whole thing, but it kind of made sense if we had to reopen for something different, or we agreed to reopen for something different, then we would have a process for that too. So that's what this is intended to be talking about. And then reopeners, full, mid-year reopeners and the successor agreements, which I put down under 4, which we already do. It's 150 days, but I thought it'd be clear for people to have that spelled out so they can kind of see, okay, if we're reopening these different articles, we have those processes in those articles. But if we reopen some other article that doesn't have a process, we will follow number 3. And then if we do our reopeners for mid-contract or for our successor agreements like right now, we would follow number 4. I mean, we're already doing it and it's in the law, but it just seems like it would make it clear for people that are reading along at home to be able to figure out what process is. Now, we're done. 31 minutes.
So out of curiosity, just why, is there a reason why seeking just a 1 year and not a 3 year? Is that?
I think it just depends on how much we get done.
Okay.
We tend to start with 1 year, because if we just can't get a lot done, then we obviously don't want to live with it for 3 years, right? But as more we achieve, we tend to move up the years as we go. I don't think that's new for you, is it? Did we do that last time?
I can't remember.
Fair enough. It was 3 years ago. Any questions about any of that? I know it was a lot coming at you quickly, so. And you can caucus and come back with questions if you want.
All right, so no, I think we're good. I think we'll go ahead and get started. And Marissa, are you able to email them our proposals? Okay, awesome. So our new proposals start with Article 3. And so our proposal is a 3-year proposal.
Okay.
So in the first year, columns C through F would get a $1.25 increase in each cell. Columns G through M, 75 cents, and columns N and above, 50 cents. And I think that's an equivalent COLA, if you kind of average all that, of just over 5%, 5.17.
But it would be split, different percentages for the different groups, but altogether?
Altogether, the average.
Gotcha, thank you. That's
Yeah.
helpful.
And then a 3% in year 2 and a 3% in year 3.
Okay. Understood.
Also, just to kind of start off is changing the name of this article from salary to compensation, because that's
There's a
more
lot in here.
accurately reflects what this is.
Yeah.
And so you'll see a few places where it says salary, where it might say wage scale or wage column,
Sure.
since it's a wage and not a salary.
Okay.
So kind of our version of a grammar correction, I guess you could say.
Well, it definitely makes it a little more pertinent to the 10,000 things underneath this article.
So one thing that I noticed in looking at some of your proposals, that I wonder if you're working off of,
Uh-oh, not this again.
because so for instance, if you look in our proposal under 3 PERS pickup, you'll notice that the district will continue paying 6% PERS pickup for all active PERS
Oh,
members, and that is what's in our contract. And so I do, when we're going through your proposals and doing these, we're working off of what we have as the signed version. So I just wanted, that was one that I
Sure.
caught. I don't know if there's others. So I just wanted to point that out.
yeah, Kim caught one last time. I mean, we had a server go down at work, so there could be some issues with that. Where we're working off an older draft. That's not the intent, obviously.
And then the payroll administration, Kim, do you want to, I mean, we were just changing it from 4 hours a day to 20 hours a week. Do you want to address that?
Clarifying, the hours per day use is not, does not encompass your entire group of employees because of some differing shifts, as well as maybe we have one-on-ones for a student that doesn't come in on Fridays. So literally equivalency, but just using the weekly, just to clarify that it's not hours per day, but it's based on your FTE, basically.
Okay, understood.
Yes.
And then we did increase the shift differential in 8. And then we kind of cleaned up some language in the longevity stipend because that was some new language last time. It was, we were catching people that may have missed one. And so that language no longer is pertinent, so we just struck that language out. And then as you saw last time we met, we took the work out of classification language out of, I'm not sure,
New position.
14 maybe? Moved it out of 14 and into what we're now calling, or proposing to call, compensation.
Yeah. Is it red because there's changes, or is it just red because it's been moved?
Moved.
Okay.
No changes, correct?
No changes, just.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, Article 4, we're proposing insurance premium, the monthly contribution to $1,700 for the first 2 years of this contract, and then up to $1,725 for the third year, being the 25-26 school year.
So there's no 2-year increase, is it? Second year increase?
So it stays at $1,700 for the first 2 years of the contract.
Gotcha, thank
Yep.
you, okay.
And that aligns to what we agreed to with SFEA, is the agreement we reached with them was $1,700 for the next 2 years. Obviously, our proposal of a third year goes beyond there, so then we put a bump. And then the opt-out would increase in the second year of the contract to $500. It'd be for the second and the third year of the contract. That also aligns with a change in the teacher contract. And then we've also added this sentence here at the end where the district may request proof of eligible coverage. We typically have not had to do that in the past, but we have gotten a couple situations where we're caught in the middle of something, and being able to ask for proof might be necessary because the district has to follow the law.
Yep.
Anything to add to that, Kim?
That actually is allowed per ORS, and for us to request proof of coverage, but we felt like having it in here helped clarify either that, or we can reference the ORS if we wish. But
Yeah, we've had to request this before when we've gotten disputes, and because there's not any contractual language, sometimes there's a feeling, well, you can't make me do that, even though the law says we can do that. And so trying to provide clarity here in the contract.
Yeah, it's kind of like the 150-day language, like same kind of scenario almost, or just having it here just makes it clearer for people, right? So I understand what you're saying.
And then E on that, Kim,
It looks the same.
is that the same? I saw it was red.
I think it's the same
It
language.
got moved. It was previously under part-time proration.
Oh, right.
And was not part of that header, so there's no strikeout on it, it's just red, because if you see down on 2C, it's struck out.
There you go.
1E, it's moved in.
Okay,
Just trying to put stuff where it goes.
sure.
And so then you'll see in the part-time proration, again, moving from hours per day to hours per week. And then Kim, any clarification on number 4, crossing out disability insurance premiums?
That is purely because we do not have the ability to withhold pre-tax disability premiums. So I'm not sure that has been in here, and I've gone back, I can't find any, back to 2015, there's been no pre-tax disability premium option, so. Just wanted to clarify since it's not available.
Yeah.
And then on 5, we had our own little grammar there.
Okay.
All right, on Article 19, sick leave. B just clarifies that there's a proration for mid-year hires. That's been practice, but wanted to make sure that it was noted in here. We changed on D, May, because that's, really up to PERS and up to how that process goes. So, we can't enforce that, so it may be part of their PERS retirement, but it might not. So,
Additionally, depends which of the payouts they choose. Not all Tier 1, Tier 2 calculations include sick leave. So there is no, Tier 1, Tier 2 are not guaranteed any benefit from that sick leave balance. Depends on which formula they retire under. There are 13 formulas. It's my understanding only one uses the sick leave.
and so then the other language is just trying to provide better clarity and organization of how, in fact, I had to deal with this yesterday with an employee asking me some questions and, trying to go find it and so I think this outlines it better as far as sick leave may be applied to absence caused by, and then listing those.
Why do we have E crossed out above that? Sorry.
I believe because it duplicated what's said in the last sentence of B. Last sentence of B says sick leave will be prorated for part-time, and it says sick leave is allowed to all employees prorated on hours worked per day. It says the exact same thing. Sick leave is granted to all employees.
But isn't this talking about under E, isn't this talking about like if I'm a 7-hour employee versus 6-hour employee or?
It says right here, sick leave will be prorated for part-time employees in B.
So you're saying anybody who's less than 8 is part-time or 7 or whatever it is? Is that what you mean?
So sick leave, if you would look at A,
Yeah.
is credited based on their work day.
Okay. Okay, I understand what you're saying now. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I understand.
We're just trying to clean up some things that we think have been over the years, just kind of,
Sure.
that was our intent. If
Yeah,
you
it was
read
just trying
as another
to
change, then we
reduce a
definitely wanna know.
redundancy.
Yeah.
No, I think it's fine. I think what they were trying to do in E, because up above it talks about when they get, like if I'm 12 months, they get 12 days, 11, so on. But what I think they're trying to say is if I'm 6-hour, I get 6 hours a day, not 8. I think that's what
Because
they
your day
intend.
is 6 hours.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you wouldn't, a day for a 6-hour employee wouldn't be 8 hours.
No.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm saying I think that's
Okay.
why that existed.
Gotcha.
So, okay, perfect, thanks.
And then the rest are striking out things that just haven't been practiced. They've been in here for a while, but we haven't been enforcing them. And so we're removing some of them. On I, we just want to provide a clarification that once absences is beyond accumulated sick leave will be taken as non-paid days following the exhaustion of all other contractual leave balances, which we have in other places in the contract. So once the non-paid doesn't actually happen until they've gone through personal or vacation or whatnot. So, and then, like we talked about last time in J, instead of just kind of continuing to add to the list of laws is, being more general. So if new laws are passed, they fall under local, state, or federal law.
Okay.
And then I think that, whenever somebody goes on unpaid leave, we always notify them of their rights to access COBRA. And I'm not sure kind of why that portion was there after the second year. I don't know, Kim, did we have any other reasons for striking that out?
Well, after a second year, there could be no opportunity for COBRA. They may have exhausted, as COBRA law requires 18-month maximum. So that really, they may not elect to continue their insurance coverage, you know, in year 2. I mean, there may be a portion thereof, so would be open to, you know, some kind of language. It is not accurate the way it's stated.
Well, not according to the law anyway. But
Correct.
this could be a superior benefit, right?
Well,
No, we can't,
Just
by
teasing
law,
you.
they have to be
Teasing
on
you.
COBRA. I mean, they are no longer part of the group policy.
I'm just teasing you. All right, understood.
so on 21, we also agree that, you know, some improvements in our tuition reimbursement. And so what we did was we looked at several different contracts, and so this is sort of a combination of what was in ours, what's in our teacher's contract, and some language from Lake Oswego's classified contract. So we've got lots of other comparators because we really did study this one. And so we combined tuition reimbursement and professional development. So we haven't had really tuition reimbursement language in here prior, so we would like to be able to provide some tuition opportunity. We picked a number of $10,000, which would be the pool for both tuition and professional development. And then, you know, those numbers could increase if it's exhausted. So then we start off by talking about tuition reimbursement for classes relevant to an employee's work assignment, other district positions, or in the pursuit of a teaching license will be eligible for reimbursement. And then this language comes straight out of our license agreement in terms of, you know, how many credits they get for that. And then the individual, in B where it hasn't changed, it's still part of the same pool of $450. I think that we, you know, could be open to some of your language that you had in yours about licensures and those sorts of things. I think if we needed to, you know, broaden the language there, we could certainly look at that to see if we need to make sure people know what they can use it for. So I think we could look at that. So. And then the last one is Addendum A, which just does some I don't know, Marissa, you worked on this one. If you want to talk about what you did here.
It just updates placement and titles from movement that's occurred over the contract, just to readjust and account for that change. And then it also incorporates those new job descriptions that we delivered a few months ago as potential placement on there.
Like special needs distance too, it has a question mark.
Yeah, so I want to make sure you caught the question mark there on that one. So we know that we've given you a couple job descriptions and we'll need to figure that out.
Okay.
But I also think that this kind of, you know, all these changes talks about a lot of the work we've done over the last 3 years that I think we both could be proud of in terms of making some really good adjustments to job descriptions, titles, some wage increases over the life of this last contract.
Well, giving people the sense that if they stay with the district and they have a job path forward, it's been, we've heard about that, that's very helpful too. So that's definitely very positive.
What's the question mark up at the top? I know.
I just asked for that. We don't have a call for that yet, right?
I think it was just trying to understand what the intention of that language was.
Yeah, do you guys have the history? Neither one of us could figure out what the intention of that language was. Yeah,
I don't know.
legacy language is great, right?
Proposed selective pay range increases.
Pay range increases, so I don't know if there was,
I mean, I know that when you start getting to the end of that, the first step, you know, so when someone does get, you know, moved into a different position, we've put them at typically the next step where they see a pay raise. So they might have been on step 6 in one column, they're moving to a different position, and the place that gets them the pay increase is step 4. That may have been what that's talking about.
Possibly,
Yeah.
we weren't quite clear on, yeah, so just, that's what the question mark, sorry about that.
No, I think that's right, because the general thing that I see with a lot of this similar type of language is, it might be maybe 1630 and I go over here and they're 1628 or 29 even, and then over here, the next step it's like 1650, right?
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to go down, so they.
Right.
I think that is what that is, but I'd have to
Maybe
look back
just,
to history
could
there
be
too.
clear
Yeah.
out a little bit.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
But I do think that's what they're trying to do there.
Yeah.
So do you want us to roll through our counter proposals?
Let's do it.
All right.
Give us time to caucus a little bit here.
Yeah, all right. So the preamble is current contract language. When we looked at your grammar proposals, I guess some of your grammar proposals were really straightforward. We understood what they were talking about. This one, we weren't quite sure what and why something needed to change, so we're not just rejecting it outright, but I guess would like an explanation of what is hoping to be gained by the changes that were in your grammar changes. And if you're not ready to talk about it now,
We'll have to look at it.
Yeah, so-
Because I didn't make any of those changes,
Yeah.
so I'll have to look and see what it says.
On your recognition proposal, you had struck out substitute workers. I mean, I know that there's the fact that we've been using EduStaff, I mean, really doesn't, I think this language in here, I would say probably predates EduStaff, so anytime we've had substitute employees, they've not been part of the bargaining unit, and so we're proposing current contract language under the recognition clause, so.
Then I would say that there's a bill pending that would make substitutes come back in-house with the legislature.
Well, they could be in-house, but that doesn't make them, I mean, even, they were, I guess if you want to call it, they were in-house before, they still were not protected under the bargaining agreement.
Gotcha. I understand
So-
the position.
So we're proposing current contract language. On Article 5, so we proposed procedures and/or forms. That was in our last proposal. And again, under 3, our changes were in our last proposal in that, we're not enforcing this have to have 10 employees, so we're changing that to say
Right.
we may, but we haven't been enforcing that. And then under 4, we did accept a couple of your grammar changes, and then we attempted to incorporate what you had under number 6, which your language was, the district will only stop deductions when the OSEA union office has informed it to stop withholding an employee dues. And so we added a sentence, the district will stop deductions upon notification from the OSEA union office. So it's worded slightly different, but it's attempting to agree with the language in your last proposal.
Okay.
All right. So under, let's see if I can make sure. You'd given us a counter proposal
Yes, to 7.
on 7,
Mhm.
and
I think we were largely in line
We were
with that. One piece about that person that falls between the meetings, I think was what we were concerned about from our side, if that helps.
I think there were also some suggested grammar changes.
Oh, well,
compared to
yeah,
the proposal
right.
we incorporated.
yeah, so anything in red here may be part of your grammar. So for instance, in 1, the strikeout of the Silver Falls School District was, I think, a part of your grammar. And so that was definitely, and then, So on 3A, we struck out the district shall upon request provide. So basically we're not gonna ask you multiple times during the year. We just didn't want a tight window. Hopefully if there are changes, and Vance has always done that. I mean, I think you've had at least one change this year, if not two, that you've notified me of a change. So I'm just hoping that will continue. We just didn't want to be bound by a September thing. So we're still coming, but your last proposal, it struck out the union will notify the district. But
The last sentence.
Yeah, that last sentence, and we would like that to stay.
Okay.
The changes in 5 are just your grammar, 7 was just grammar. So when we get to 9, which is where we had some back and forth. So we worked on this. So we kept with our goal of having 3 orientation meetings, during at least 3 during the year. And that at the conclusion or a part of those meetings, the union will have 1 hour of paid time at the end. I guess it says at the end of the meeting to review union information. But you had concerns around being able to follow the law within 30 days. And so what we added there was, in the event that a district orientation meeting is not scheduled within the first 30 days of a new employee's hire date, the union may facilitate a meeting with the employee for up to 30 minutes during the employee's workday. The union shall coordinate the meeting with the building principal or supervisor. So we're trying to help you stay within the law and feel like you're not giving up something there. But I think the difference between A and I guess AI is kind of who's responsible.
Sure.
Under A, we're going to make the effort of holding the orientation meeting, getting people to a centralized location for the purposes, and then your team can come in and we'll make sure you have an hour. But if you're like, hey Dan, we've got 2 people waiting out here, we need to follow the law, then I'll just let Vance or whomever coordinate with the principal supervisor to get that meeting scheduled.
And I guess even if that process fell down, and we were in violation of the law, they would still go to the next scheduled one anyway, right?
Totally, yeah.
So,
Whenever the next meeting is going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right.
This just gives, in my mind, this gives you guys a carve out to be able to say, hey, you've talked about, my bosses are getting on me about this, and so if you are feeling the pressure that you've got to get to these 2 employees and the next orientation isn't for another month, then Vance calls Brett and say, hey, I got to schedule a 30-minute with these 2 people.
Okay.
So.
Understood.
On the 3 meetings per year, do you guys have an idea of what months you want those to be in?
I would say we're probably targeting August, we're gonna have one. I think I've already given the in-service one. That one's already on the books. I would say we'd probably be looking November, December. We'd want to get something, catch anybody who was hired in early September. And then probably something February, March. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it also depends on, volume. I mean, we get 10 new employees during a time period, that we hire 10 new people in April, we're probably going to want to have that done before June. So, and that's where it's at least 3. So.
Well, and I feel like you guys could probably work.
Yeah.
I mean, we could put language in here, but I feel like you guys could probably work that out because you have so far. So.
Yeah.
And figuring out what you need, how much you need beyond, or when they're going to be. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that it for 7?
I think that was yep.
Yeah.
Grievance procedure, we went with current contract language.
Okay.
One of the things that I noticed in your proposal, besides the days, which I think, we really haven't had very many grievances, and which I think speaks to us working collaboratively together. I think adding days just prolongs a process. We've typically been pretty good about communicating with each other about the needs that we have to try to get our processes done. I guess the one thing that's crossed out on a couple places is the word specific. And I think that word's important to us because it's harder to know whether we violated the contract if it's just presented to us in general terms of you violated the discipline article or you violated this. Is, you know, like what's specific in the contract, or what was the specific action of the district that created the contract violation. So I think that word is important to us.
Okay.
Work hours and work week. So I think we should spend a little bit of time on this one. And I had my aha moment on this one on the screen. So if we need to put it up on the screen, we could. But in that, we talked about changing somebody's schedule and then their hours. And we had this conversation about being able to adjust their hours by 30 minutes. And so we added some language to add some clarification in 3A. So what has been the practice has been, we can adjust people's hours either plus or minus 30 minutes within those 3 groupings. So in I, the first one, someone will be assigned 7 hours or more a day or 35 hours more per week. So in that case, I could add 30 minutes to someone's day, but I couldn't take away 30 minutes because that would move someone out of that group. Okay? But within the next 2, where there's kind of a wider range, where you're between 20 and 35. So if someone was a 30-hour employee, we could lower them 30 minutes a day because that would still keep them within that group. I couldn't do more than 30 because the previous, the A language talks about up to, it talked about 30 minutes. Is once you hit 30 minutes, there had to be conversations. So what we tried to do is add some language so that was clearer, and then that red sentence was actually, I think it was previously the last sentence in A, but we pulled it out to kind of give it more emphasis. So that employees will normally be assigned work hours in keeping with their employment status. So those 3 bullets under there they fall into an employment status of 35 hours or more a week, 20 to 35, or less than 20.
Yeah,
So-
I understand what you're saying there.
So 3A is trying to talk about that number of hours someone's assigned, and then 3B is trying to talk about their work schedule.
Okay.
And, our goal there is adjustments to work schedules not agreeable to the employee shall be discussed with the union and the employee before implementation. So we're not trying to take away that, we're just trying to talk about the top part being about the number of hours they're assigned, and B, talking about their work schedule. So we're not changing necessarily that they work 7 hours, but maybe instead of 9 to 3, it's gonna be 8 to 2 or something like that. And maybe they hey, that doesn't work for my childcare or what have you, then we have to have a conversation.
So I understand what you're trying to do. I think there's a little bit of disagreement on practice here, but I think that how I've heard this being used is using your example, 9 to 3, you might back me up to 8:30 and I'd end at 2:30. You might push me from, 9 to 9:30, I'd end at, 3:30. That's how I've understood it to work here. So I think we have to have some more discussion about this, but I do understand what you're trying to do here, and it's
Yeah.
very clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on B, on the next page, compensatory time off.
There's a change. It's
There-
the third sentence in compensatory time accrual.
Yeah, so we obviously we struck out that it's not gonna be on the paycheck stub, and you guys said, well, we still need to know what it is and how do we find it. So there is a third sentence in there that says compensatory time will be tracked using a district established tracking method, making accrual information accessible to the employee. So not necessarily saying how we're gonna do it, but it says we have to do it, and the employee needs to know how to access what they have for comp time.
Well,
So-
when somebody calls Bully will be glad to see you have a process. So that'll be helpful for everybody. Okay, understood.
All right. So I think everything else was in our previous proposal. So over to 13. Under B, you had wanted seniority to be a factor in that. One of the things that you had said during your presentation of that was related to all things being equal, and I think that that's where management wants to be able to kind of be able to weigh out some of those things as far as where we might see, if there were 4 or 5 employees, we might be able to see things on their application materials that might elevate people that is not seniority based. So,
But then things wouldn't be equal, right?
well, I think that's the seniority attempts to be an equalizer of sorts, whereas we want to have discretion to be able to evaluate based on previous experience, other factors that they may present on paper that say, okay, well, we got obviously a popular position, we got 5 people that are applying, we're picking these 3 based on factors that we're giving more weight and not seniority based.
Sure, no, and I would understand that. I mean, if I have a little more experience than Vance does, you want me to be one of those 3 that you're interviewing. What I'm saying is me and Vance have the same exact experience. I mean, the same on paper. Why wouldn't we go with seniority? That's the intent of what we put across the table. I don't think it changes what you're saying. I mean, if you have a determining factor over here that raises this person up, elevates them, that would make sense you would use them. But if we have 2 people in the same position, kind of really literally carbon copy, they're just different people on paper, then that's what we meant by our
Sure.
proposal. But I understand what you're saying here.
So then you also had in C, the position will be filled temporarily during the posting period and the union shall be notified. I mean, I think I do a pretty good job of that. I'm not adding that language. I don't want to add language that could be grieved for just an oversight when I think 9 times out of 10 I do that. So there may be the occasion where Vance finds out, maybe after a decision's been made, and I wouldn't want to open that up for a grievance just because someone beat me to the punch. So
I don't fully understand what you're saying in that.
well, we're just rejecting your language proposal in 1C that the union will be notified of those. So for instance, we have someone filling in as the lead cook out of Butte Creek right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a temporary placement. I did notify Vance of that. I think I did. Okay.
I believe you.
That was the questionable sure. That was the sure, I trust you, Dan, but I can't say for sure. So that would be a case where I think what my notification said, we're filling this temporarily. It's being posted as a new position to start next year. So Again, it's something I do. I'm not wanting that as contract language that could be grieved in the case that I forget to do that, or somebody else, or in this case, Andrew tells Vance before I get to tell Vance, sort of thing, because maybe the food service person needed to send him out there right away.
Okay, thank you.
It's not against the philosophical belief that Vance or the union should know that information. It's more of, what does that open us up to?
Okay. What would be the resolution of that grievance?
I don't know.
To do it right next time?
Could be. That falls into the trust us category that we both don't like. All right. 14. I think we both gave proposals on this one last time. Marissa is I know so that red in the middle of the page is just because it went from a bullet to an I. And then the working out of classification is moved.
To compensation.
And then, so really is there anything else in there, Marissa?
We incorporated their grammar.
Their grammar changes.
Okay, we incorporated your grammar changes in A, B, and C. So I think that we're pretty, and we also incorporated the strikeout of the state's collective bargaining law in the middle of that, which was part of your grammar change. So I think we might be able to TA this one if the work out of classification stuff, we all agree that that will move to a different place.
Understood.
So, all right, reclassification procedure. So we're proposing current contract language.
Sure.
And I guess striking out the entire article, and I think that.
Well, that's part of it.
Okay, well, maybe just as the way it's, I'd rather see kind of, if we want to make changes, incorporating changes within existing language because there's a reason why we want to tweak this or something like that. Because this just seems like it's aiming at, so like if you I'm looking at your proposal on 1B, where it says, if an employee feels that the alignment of their position on the salary schedule is not appropriate, the employee may submit a reclassification request to the Human Resources Director. And then, you look and they shall incorporate the following 1, 2, 3, and 4. It doesn't, none of those say anything about like job description, which typically a reclassification.
Doesn't it say like justification or something like that, or basically some reason why you're requesting it? Because that's where that language would be under there, I would imagine. But it doesn't specifically use those words. That is true.
Yeah. It just seems like it's aiming for someone to make a case that they deserve to get paid higher versus a reclassification where, somebody gets their pesticide, and that's only in, a grounds 3 position. And so those are obviously the easiest ones where it's, they need to be reclassed into this. And I know we've done a few of these, obviously the secretarial ones, which were major. We did have at least one, if not 2, people go, ask more about, and it was more about a wage issue than a job description issue.
Right.
And I think that reclassification needs to really be about what does the job description say, and are you performing the functions within that job description?
And our intent for our proposal was not to take it away from that. Those categories are laid out we want to make sure people are coming to that committee with evidence rather than just they feel that they should get a raise, right? So I think that was the intent. Maybe it missed the mark on some of the language you prefer to see in there. And maybe we'd be willing to talk about that to make it more aimed at what you're talking about. I don't think that's a problem, because the second piece of that at the end of it is the change part, right? The change committee. And that speaks more to, I feel like I was wronged. Okay, well, you still have to bring proof that you were wronged to this committee. But even after bringing that proof, you know, if it's just you're wrong, you just feel this way, the committee's gonna tell you that, but it gives those people some closure and chance to be heard. And what we've seen in other places is that people tend to, even if they're ruled against, they tend to walk away and they grumble at first, but then they start, you'd see the change in their behavior because they've been heard. And they've actually, when you say something out loud to people, it tends to be different when it's in your head, and people tend to be like, well, that maybe I didn't have a good argument there, right? You know, so it was broken into two pieces, but kind of what you're talking about is more aimed at the second piece of this, a little bit more, I think. At least that was our intent. So I think having a cleaner, clearer process, and we've kind of strayed from this document a bit, and I think in the right ways out here, you know, group classifications, different things we've done, like the secretaries and stuff. I think there's some things that we've done that are really good work and modeled on some of that language changes that we've used in other areas, quite frankly. So we're willing to have those discussions. I understand your counter. I would say we would like more opportunity to talk about it. Maybe
Yeah.
it could even be a work session. You know?
Well, and I will fully admit these first two bargaining sessions, 2 hours, I mean,
Not
you know,
enough, yeah.
you turned the fire hose on last
Yeah.
time and it was a lot to take
Yeah.
in, and you're probably feeling the same way right now after listening to me for the last 45 minutes. So I think, yeah, as we move into 4-hour sessions, we'll have
Little
more
easier,
time to
yeah.
break some of this stuff down for sure. And
17?
yep, holidays. So ours is, we're just coming back with our previous proposal. We didn't make any changes?
Grammar changes?
Oh, we did accept your grammar changes on the appropriate use of apostrophes for President's Day and Veterans Day.
All right, my
So
secretary
we did
will be
catch
happy.
those. And I learned a lot through that process because I had to Google that, so.
I just have a really good secretary, so.
All right, so I would throw emergency school closure and reclassification in kind of the same kind of bucket, so to speak, of you know, so much strike through makes it hard for us to figure out, you know, kind of what within the existing language needs fixing. I don't think we're, you know, especially after this winter, that, you know, I think we're open to understanding that inclement weather is, you know, and how we handle that could be evaluated. I guess for me, it's just hard to figure out, okay, what problem are we trying to solve when everything gets struck out and replaced?
Well, I think I left a little bit in there, but to answer your question, we took a much bigger article and shrunk it down to very simple. I mean, it became a lot less. That was the intent, just to make it as clean and clear as possible. And I think we use half a page instead of a page and a half or whatever, right? That's essentially it, you know. But I mean, yes, again, I understand. I mean, we can have some more discussions about that. Some of this stuff will probably be really good things to talk about in the work session, you know.
And I'd be curious, I mean, I feel like looking at the employees that, you know, still have some makeup time to do and things like that. I mean, trying to be as flexible with folks as we can, but also it's that balance of being flexible with people, but then also fair, because people will talk. And if someone, you know, was, you know, really quick to make up the time or what have you, and finds out that so-and-so's, you know, had 35 hours still not made up, I mean, we're both going to hear about that one.
Sure.
So you know, so I feel like trying to meet every employee where they're at, but also say that somehow this has to get made up. So.
Well, and I think part of it too is that there was some concern for some of our folks on equity issues where classified were making up hours and confidential and certified were not. And it's the same effect for both. They both got affected, right? So I heard a bunch of that during this process too. And that felt, just on the face of it from them, that felt fairly unfair and unequitable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's reasons why, but part of the reason why is just that, you know, some of your neighboring districts, I want to say 2 of the 3, have similar language to what I proposed. I mean, it's just, It's just trying to keep things a little bit clearer and straight across the board for all the folks.
Could you
So,
tell us which ones you've pulled from at all? And
if you look at Cascade, they have language that covers all the folks if they're off. And then Dallas is the other one.
Okay,
We have pretty similar in Central. They do have a little bit of, which I think I incorporated in this, they do have something in there on snow days for their 12-month employees or any of their employees, if they can do the mandatory training videos, stuff like that, they have the right to do that. But I think other than that, it's pretty much the same too. So.
and were the big discrepancies between classified and licensed, was that when we didn't have, so work days became, or non-contract days became contract days for classified? And,
I think I recall that, like the teachers took days that they were normally, they were like in service days or whatever, and they made them contact days.
yeah,
And then that forced our people in, and
They didn't have
They
to
were
make
gonna
it
work
up,
anyway.
so there was not it just changed the work for teachers, but made work for classified.
They still got paid the extra time,
Gotcha,
yeah,
where our folks are being told to make up time.
yeah.
gotcha.
And that's always the tricky thing when you're dealing with all these groups too.
Yeah.
So,
This doesn't feel very fair.
like I said, I heard quite a bit of this one in my ear when we were putting together our committees, so. But like I said, I think a couple of these, if we can, set up a limited member work session, I think we could probably have some real frank discussions and figure out, not bargaining, but just have some discussions about what we're thinking, and everybody can, feel free to voice their opinion without it being on the record, but at least you'll know exactly what the other side's thinking without any kind of question about what's going on. Kind of like we did last time, I think it was helpful last time too. Article 20.
So Article 20, I think there's some changes in 3 that I think just we're providing some clarity on. Most of them are, I think, just part of your grammar.
Is that an option, legal? Because I don't see it in there. I had a teacher that had to go to court for a student, and it was not an option for legal. Is that
It
under
needs to be
professional? or-
communicated with the district office because we would need,
Oh, you would have
it's
to
not
do that.
available to,
Okay,
there are system limitations to making something available to users and
Okay.
not available to all employees, so yeah,
Okay.
just communicate with our lead
Okay.
expert.
it got
That's what I
canceled,
do.
but I was
Yep.
just looking for it.
Yep, we're happy to review those, the case by case, yeah, exactly, yeah.
On E, we wanted upon request unpaid personal leave, so people know they need to request that.
Who would they request that to?
Well, the superintendent or designee, and we could clean that up so we make sure they know exactly who. I think everything,
HI is a change, right?
where's that one?
H, numeral I, worksite.
I believe this is also a reflection of the grammar.
That was a grammar change from,
From us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good catch. All right, thank you.
let's see.
No, I see what happened there, yeah.
So we did on 6G, we did add your PLO, that made sense for that there.
Hell, we could probably even change that to local, state, and federal law. I mean, just to make it,
Yeah, we could
We
do,
would,
yeah.
yeah. Although I do think in that particular, if you take that sentence, those, talking about what runs concurrently, those are typically the ones that run concurrently, so that one kind of sort of makes more sense to have
Sure.
that way.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have it either way. I was just,
Yeah.
yeah.
7D, we struck that last part out because Kim,
PERS policy does not allow someone to remain in active status on a leave of absence. All leaves of absence must be reported to PERS. And that's in the EDX employer handbook, if you'd like to look at that.
I'll just ask the people we pay to figure that out. Much easier.
so I think that's pretty much it on that one. 23, we rejected the strikeout of, there'll be no lockout of employees in the bargaining unit during the term. Or no, which one did you, no, that wasn't what you.
Oh, we struck out number 2 because we have a disciplinary article in the contract. So I'm not sure what this accomplishes.
Well, even though we don't have an attorney, Mr. Hungerford or the Hungerfords aren't at the table, this will probably be one that, my guess is this is to bring clarity around, should there be a work stoppage with another unit that people know that they can't, violate this. That's why I think that's probably there.
So in some places, we put in accordance with Article 24, or whatever the discipline article is too. Because like I said again, I think you have the right to do some of that already based on our disciplinary article, but I hear what you're saying.
And we did have your couple grammar ones there for you can see. Layoff and recall, I mean, this is not something, thankfully we've had to interact with in a few years. And so we're just going with current contract language. I don't think the district wants to change dates and timelines, as I don't know that we would know what we're agreeing to, how that would impact our ability to run a RIF and recall process. So we went with current contract language there. I think that. So then the last two that we had, Article 22 and 27 were a part of your grammar changes, but we couldn't find them.
22 and 27?
Is that correct, Marissa?
27, there were no shown changes, they were just proposals with your title, and no, I don't have any.
And it could very well be that those just got folded in there too. So. 22, 27. All right, we'll look at those in caucus. Shall we caucus and
Yeah.
try to come back to right before the end so we can hopefully have some PAs and see what we can figure out?
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right, this is more of you, we'll steal your office. All right, so, Dan, you're relentless, beating us down. We decided to bring you back some TAs.
All right, excellent.
So we're gonna go ahead and accept your number 5 as a TA.
Okay. Do we need to prepare copies for that, or how do you want to do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Marissa, do you want to prepare a TA?
These are all your TAs, so you should obviously just have to have the
Yeah.
lines at the bottom.
Yep.
So, and then Article 7, we're gonna show that as a TA too. We're gonna accept your proposal on that.
Awesome.
Article 14, we're gonna accept as a TA with the condition that our proposal that's in the bottom of ours will move to the new article.
Okay.
And then we're gonna show Article 20 as a TA as well. Top that.
Well, we brought you 4, so you responded
Hey.
to 4, so there you go.
So it's
20.
5, 7, 20,
And
14, I think.
14, perfect, sorry, I didn't hear one.
That's all right.
Great, 8 TAs and 2 bargaining sessions. Might be a record.
Well, we didn't have to change much this time. We
Yeah.
did a lot of heavy work and heavy lifting last time in 2020.
So do we want to spend last 8 minutes talking about, because we're turning around back here on Monday for 4 hours. So, so in terms of, I think, determining who's in whose court, because we lobbed a lot of stuff back your way. And then, so can it be safe to assume that everything that was in our counter proposal is in your court next time?
I think that's fair.
Okay. And then on,
With the understanding, a couple of them you went with CCL, so
right.
I mean, we're kind of stuck in the
Yeah,
same position.
and I guess that's a good segue into, our hope for the next session would be a better understanding of, I guess what I kind of jotted down some notes here, some, kind of a more in-depth explanation with supporting evidence around, kind of trying to have a deeper conversation on the intent.
And that's what I was kind of throwing out there, maybe we have a work session with a smaller group of people, where we're not bargaining, but we could really drill down on a couple of those things, and it wouldn't be a little easier to schedule since we don't have everybody there. Any ideas we get from that group, like before, we would take back to our committees, but it would help us craft better proposals, I think.
So having our regular session on Monday, and then if we wanted to have some work groups between the 5th and the 21st, maybe?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
It would give us the ability to, I mean, some of the proposals are straightforward, but it would give us the ability to really, like a couple things you were saying, I was like, well, that's not in our intent, and I think you said that at least once in something we were saying, so it'd be able to have those discussions and just really be able to understand what the other side means, so that we can craft a proposal that addresses those concerns.
All right, so just to recap, so the counter proposals that we gave you are back in your court, and again, our hope is to get, a better understanding of the intent and a deeper conversation around what your objectives are in some of those.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
A couple other things is, so you referenced the legislation around the 5-hour minimums, and so that legislation has been amended to only be for SNAs or SPED.
And that's come out of committee?
I don't even know if that's come.
The bill has been amended.
Okay. It was in 2 places, so has it been dropped in the other one, do you know?
I don't know, we got
Yeah.
notification.
I'll ask our grow people, they would know, yeah.
So, and then I guess the other thing, the 2 articles, well, we exchanged 4 articles of the same. So I will assign us 21 with training.
Well, and those 4 that were the same, I mean.
Well, we both did 3, 4, 19, and 21.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to figure out whose court's in.
Right, I think, well, because you're only going to have to respond to, or is there other ones I'm not remembering? There's probably the ones I'm not remembering, but those are the only ones you have to respond to, right? Then you respond to everything else?
Well, yeah, I mean, we responded to everything else, but we both gave initial proposals
No,
on those. So I'm just kind of trying to,
Right. What I'm suggesting is maybe you would respond next session to those, because I feel like we're not going to get super close on some of that stuff just yet anyway, but because we're going to be responding to all your other counters. It's kind of what I was thinking.
Let me take a look at your 19 here real quick, just to see kind
So I know they're saying 10.2, but they're also not meeting and passing bills, so. It's like.
So we will take a look at, we'll take 19 and 21. I guess for 3 and 4, with salary, our ask is, that in not necessarily having either side present something on salary, but I guess we would want to know where the comparisons are at that defend a $5 an hour increase. I mean, just in terms of, so that's a 35% increase average COLA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot. And also with your 7% index, you would have one employee that would get a $25,000 increase. So,
Vance?
No.
Oh, sorry, Vance.
But I bet Vance can quickly guess that if it's not him, who it is. So I guess those are just things for us is we you made the comment about, we're far apart on here. We feel like our proposal is different than what we've tried in the past. We, by having, a versus just percentage of starting out with a dollar amount across every cell and really targeted towards areas where, we've looked and found some deficiencies or wanting to, bring people up. So I guess our ask is for you to bring some comparisons to us about what are you seeing in other places where you've negotiated, like Dallas and others, to where, because last time granted, Ty's not on your team anymore, and Ty spent a lot of time, but Ty came with a pretty thorough study. So we want to be able to be responsive to what you're presenting to us, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I would say this, I would say that this is very much, like this is the time when people shoot for the moon, because when are they going to do it? When the contract's closed, So it's a full opener. And when you talk about, we had a much bigger pool of people involved this time, which was interesting. And, people tend to feel their worth and their value. And I think you see that reflected in this, in our proposal. And I think that it's like anything else, this is what you're asking for, we're asking for. We work towards the middle, right? I mean, we do it every day, it seems like. So I would say that they're probably looking at increasing the salary step, a little bit there to offset some of the costs of inflation and various things. They're probably looking for, yes, more of a wage, probably dollar amount, that would probably be good. But, we understand that none of those things are going to be something the district's going to sign off on just in their current form. It's going to change, it's going to morph. We can go through the exercise of bringing you your neighbors around you. I suspect you have all that information already based on what you just told me of the proposals you did. We could do that if you'd like. My opinion is that 4 and 3, insurance and compensation, might be better set to the side for the moment while we work on this other stuff, just because they're still not meeting in the capital, unless something's changed today I didn't hear about. And even though we have a number, we just don't know what's going forward, what's going to happen with some of the stuff that's on there, right? So I'll leave it to you. We can certainly get the information you already have, or we can, just start having some real good discussion about where we think best to spend those dollars. I think that would be more fruitful. We have some ideas in that front. And I also think that would be really good for a work session, so we could kind of lay out some ideas that we have in a non-binding way that, to talk to you about. You might find there's some things in there that are actually a little more doable than what you have in front of you currently. So, yeah.
Well, I can agree to set 3 and 4 to the side for the next session.
Yeah.
But
we don't want to set them aside for the 21st. No, that's not what I'm saying.
that's
Yeah.
a long ways away.
Yeah.
And I think that I wouldn't want to, I don't mind having a work session on a particular article where maybe I can get if it's something that, is more geared towards EAs and SNAs, Brandon and I could meet with 1 or 2 of you. Maybe, I know you've talked about having some rotating people through, so maybe we sit down. I don't mind doing that, but I think for salary and insurance, I don't think that's a sidebar.
I want to be clear, first of all, we're not going to be bargaining anything, nothing
Sure.
in those meetings. Secondly, is that it's not so much that we want to show you something in a different way that might touch on the things that we've presented, but if you're not interested at all, like even after we explain it, then I don't want to waste time in session with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the money thing would be, we're talking compensation. I guess I just prefer, that's one of those things where full transparency is better, where we've got recorded and we're wide out here, wide open in the open. I think seeking to understand each other on language, that's not binding. We're still going to come back to this environment and present proposals. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But I guess I would want the 3 and 4 to always, the conversations, any presentations.
Yeah, that's fine. And we can do that. I mean, the point was not to be transparent. The point was to see if there's any interest in presenting it in a different way, because it just saves time, because our sessions, even though they go to 4 hours, we both know how that will, when we work with our committees, that time will go by quick, so that's the intent there, but it doesn't have to be that way. We could give you bundle packages too, and you could look at them that way too, and that's fine with us as well.
Okay,
That's fine. So what do we want to do? We're gonna respond to your counters that have counters.
so, yep, so full recap, we've got 8 TAs. You're gonna respond to all of our counter proposals. We're gonna respond to 19 and 21, and we're tabling 3 and 4
Till the next session.
till the next session.
So just a clarification, the ones that are current contract language, there's nothing for us to respond to on those, like 18. We're going to probably have to have that work session, have discussion about that.
Well, I guess my ask is that you walk us, when I'm presenting these to you, I'm trying to walk you through each of the changes and explain why we're proposing something or giving a recent example of a situation, and here's why we're either proposing this or not accepting your offer. So yeah, I understand that we might see the exact same proposal.
Okay.
I understand that, but my ask is to get really a line-by-line explanation of the intent behind it, why is, where it's being brought from, what's advantageous about it for us, or for, this is the contract that we both share, what's advantageous for both parties to accept this language. And so that I don't necessarily expect that you're just gonna go, well, Dan said current contract language, so we better just go with that. I'm not expecting that.
Right.
But I do want it to better understand this, because a lot of it, again, that's what 2-hour introductory sessions are for. A lot of it is here, here, but now our team wants to understand.
Yeah, and that's fine, and we can, as long as I just didn't want you to feel slighted if we bring back the same thing, because obviously we're getting current contract language, right? So,
But I want it, especially like on 15 and 18, I want to really understand what these are aiming for.
and that's easy enough, we can do that. And I don't read through the whole proposals because we do have limited time, and I know you can all read.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to go through that line by line and explain that. That's not a problem. Obviously not today, but yeah, we can do that next time. I just didn't want you to see something and go, why are you giving me the same thing back?
You were not offended when I said current contract language, so.
I was not.
It would take more than that to offend me.
All right, I'll work hard on me. Good.
Team, any other?
All right.
So I think Marissa's getting the,
Thank you all for your time.
Yeah.
And then we can go off record and sign the TAs there. Okay.